We're really excited to be here. I think Agentic and AI, of course, have been huge topics. If you were at some of the previous conferences, ALM, CES, Agentic was the buzzword. And we've brought together what I think is a rock star panel to really kind of demystify Agentic, dive into it, and get realistic about what it means today and what it can mean in the future. So let's start by having each of our panelists introduce themselves, what your company is doing, and for our marketers and brands in the room, what they could be doing with you. Aaron.
Thank you. So it's great to be here. My name's Aaron. I'm one of the co-founders and chief scientists at Cognitiv. I'm a neuroscientist by training, but decided to shift careers at some point and founded Cognitiv on a pretty simple thesis. Our thesis was that neural networks, which then became deep learning, which now we call AI, would be a game changer for advertising because they had an ability, or would develop ability at least, to understand human content and behavior in a much more nuanced way than any prior technology. And I think that thesis has borne out more than I could have imagined over the last 10 years. And so what Cognitiv has built is a platform. I think of it as trying to take the intelligence of foundation models and make them work at the speed and scale of programmatic, because those two things really aren't commensurate. And with that platform, we offer a managed service DSP, and programmatic activation products, one called Cognitiv Curation and another called Context GPT. And I think if you're a LiveRamp customer, it's probably those programmatic activations working through PMPs that are the easiest to get started with. And generally, I think of us as sort of an AI performance layer in your programmatic stack. I'll leave it there.
Awesome. Ali.
Hi, I'm Ali Manning, co-founder and COO at Chalice AI. So we are also came after Cognitiv, born out of similar thesis that AI was going to revolutionize advertising. Also, we were founded before ChatGPT went on the scene, so before AI became a buzzword. And our focus is on helping brands grow using AI models that are custom built for the brand's outcome. So for example, Hershey uses us to sell out candy in the stores. Claritin from Bayer uses us to drive up household penetration by driving up new incremental customers. Zillow uses us to get better leads for home tours and mortgages. So we have an array of clients who are using us. We believe that AI at the enterprise level is going to really depend on the models that get deployed, and that those models should be deployed per enterprise using the best available data for an enterprise. So something that's amazing is we're LiveRamp's first partner to power lookalike audiences based off of your data in LiveRamp. We call those growth scored audiences because they're very different than lookalikes. We're not going to get into it here. There was a panel earlier about that. And I'm just thrilled to be here with my fellow panelists.
Awesome to have you. And Ravi.
Yeah, so guys, Ravi Patel, CEO and co-founder of SWYM.ai. And what that stands for is stop wasting your money. And that's really reflective of what we're trying to do in this ecosystem and help marketers essentially make smarter decisions. So we are an AI native decisioning layer that sits within the ad tech systems to really help marketers make smarter decisions across the ecosystem, but also historically, as we all know, like optimization occurs after let's say an impression hits your bidder or hits your DSP or anything like that, right? What we're doing is just saying, how do we make more of those decisions upstream and enable that? Because as we go into this agentic and AI kind of environment and these systems get more connected, it becomes even more important to kind of go through and make these decisions more upstream so you get access to a lot more in your entire bidder.
Awesome. All right. Let's set the stage for our guests today. So what does the audience need to know about agentic marketing right now? And then what do they need to be thinking about for agentic marketing long term? Aaron, do you want to kick us off?
Sure. Let's see. But let me preface my answer by saying I'm very bullish on AI. And I'm bullish on agents too. I mean, I did my PhD on reinforcement learning, which is where the term agent comes from. But I'm bullish in a more long-term sense. I think, if I was going to share something with the audience, my perspective is, agentic systems in the next year or two, when it comes to marketing, are really going to be relegated to relatively small supervised tasks. I'm not bullish on, agents making decisions in the near future that involve large sums of money or figuring out how your advertising should be spent. I think today and for the next couple of years, AI is really an accelerator for humans, not an independent operator.
All right, accelerator for humans over the next couple of years.
Yeah.
Ali, let's go to you.
So agree with Aaron. Two additional thoughts that I think are useful for the audience. So one is agents are going to be a wrapper for how things get done, but the instructions that the agents get is what really matters. And having robust AI-driven models that power those agents is going to be the difference. I think agents will become commoditized pretty quickly. The other thing I would say is you could define agentic media as 100 years old. Publicis just celebrated their 100-year anniversary. They are an agent C, right? Like they're agents of the client. So we've just become more and more efficient, automated. And again, like if you think of it that way, what do agents depend on? They depend on good training. An agency that does well for its clients is well trained. And then I would say, like at Chalice, we define some of what we've been doing as agentic for a couple of years, right? Because we have what's called a bidding agent that sits inside of an SSP and can model and make a decision in real time, on the bid stream. So it sort of depends on how you define it. But I think that agents kind of operating autonomously, certainly buying media budgets will be a while because there's a whole liability situation that has to be worked out.
And Ravi?
To add on to that, agents, I think, one thing that we need to know is they're not going to replace marketers. And that's one of the biggest fears is oh my God, we're in the agentic era, I'm going to lose my job. I'm not a believer in that. I think there is both an art and science to our ecosystem, which is also a part of why we have a lot of passionate people. The other piece is, I think where you're going to see agents and you're starting to see agents kind of work. And what we've seen is 5 to 10% of everything everyone talks about is experimentation, and then there's less than 1% of actually truly autonomous stuff that's actually happening. It's agent-assisted marketing, right? To create plans, to create briefs, and things like that. It's where it's actually useful, where it's actually working. I still think a lot of what we do is manual, and those are the pieces where there is an opportunity for a lot of that automation to come and take place, connect these systems. But until we solve the fragmentation issues across a lot of our ecosystem, it's still going to be a little bit of time.
All right, I think you...
I just want to add, so I think if you define agent as broadly as a human doing something for you as an agent, then I'm bullish on agents. But I think, the definition has gotten so broad because there's so much buzz, but
everyone's claiming it, right?
Strictly, it's if you have an AI that takes actions and learns from those actions in order to optimize a reward, that's the definition of agent from the machine learning literature. And so running an algorithm really isn't agentic. But today, agent just means an LLM helped you. I think that's what it means.
I mean, it also means that we're great marketers because we sold ourselves on it.
Yeah.
All right. So you kind of get to the next question. Okay, so we're saying next couple of years, good news. Everyone's not losing their job to an agent, so that's a good news from the panel. But we're going to start to become a little more efficient, and we're going to see agents start to engage more in campaigns, maybe not running 100% of campaigns in 2 years, but starting to do more and more. As we look to scale this, as the ecosystem looks to evolve, call it 1 to 5 years from now, there's some pain points that we have to address. And I think sometimes in these panels, we leap over the pain points and we only focus on the optimistic future. Now, Aaron, you have come out on record and said, hey, we're a little over our skis here as an industry. Maybe share a little bit what the pain points you're on and how we're over our skis.
I think it depends what we're talking about in terms of pain points. But in terms of getting agents to really run campaigns in the next 5 years, I think there's just fundamental research problems that would have to be solved to make that happen. You take, I think it was a great article in the Wall Street Journal, I feel like it was like November timeframe, where they worked with Anthropic to try to get an agent to run a vending machine, which seems like a relatively simple task, and it started losing money and giving things away. And and I think so scaling it in that sense of like getting to that point, I think we're pretty far from, which I already said. But I think more optimistically, I think there's lots of, in the broader definition of ways to use AI, I think foundation models offer huge opportunities besides building end-to-end agents. And that hasn't fully diffused into the ad tech stack. And I think all of our companies are thinking about, how do we do that sort of smaller task effectively? How do we update those she called them bid agents. How do we update the bid agents to utilize what wasn't possible just a year ago with reasoning models and things like that?
Okay. And Ali, what do you see as kind of some of the pain points to get to scale?
So has anyone here set up an advertising campaign, like in a platform before? Yeah, raise your hand. Great. So how many of you have accidentally like fat fingered an extra zero or something like that, or set the campaign to operate globally instead of in the US, right? Like those are like, I did it and I thought I was going to lose my job. It was like half my salary that I accidentally spent over 2 days. Right. So I think again, so that seems like a perfect place for an agent, right? Is like you have your campaign set up, the checklist, it can like learn that and do it every time. But usually as someone who set up campaigns early in my career, every campaign has like a nuance and like variation, and trying to train agents to like understand that autonomously, right? You probably end up with the vending machine analogy. That said, I think there's like a lot of growth. So we once worked with an agency partner who broke out their time for us, and it was like 50% meetings, like something like 12 to 15% billing, like blah blah percent reporting. At the end of it was 2% for optimization. So like imagine like at first agents can probably start handling the bigger things like billing, right? Or even like I don't have to attend to so many meetings because what we do is we record every meeting, throw the transcript into Claude, and it like briefs everyone else who didn't need to be at that meeting. And then that leaves time for the buyer to do optimization alongside their agent and actually have insights into what will drive growth. So I think there's like both a challenge, but also a lot of opportunity.
Mm. And Ravi, how about you?
To add on it, but Aaron, I will one-up you on this. So a friend was just telling me yesterday with ClaudeBot, they ran it autonomously or tried to, and it ended up ordering a $4,000 bag because it saw its own YouTube video of the bag. That's what we could run into. So here's the thing, right? With agents, you need what? I have no clue. I was told the story. But here's the thing, right? With agents, and when we think about this, right, you need controlled inputs to get controlled outputs. And with the fragmentation that's in our ecosystem, whether it comes to data or it comes to identity, it comes to supply, it comes to media, until all of that's really in a universal normalized layer, it's going to be very difficult to actually let an agent fully run everything. The other piece is, I think we always have a tendency to kind of go and think about agents when we should really be thinking about what are we solving for. So if you kind of put complexity on the x-axis and you put frequency on the y-axis, and just think low and high, right? You have low frequency, you have low complexity. A human can probably answer that task. You have low frequency and you have high frequency and low complexity. Then you use a rules-based engine, and you have high complexity and low frequency. Okay, maybe at that point you can use some statistical modeling. And then on the high frequency, high thing, you can use things like AI and pieces. So understand the use cases. Not everything is for agents. And I think that's where you're going to start seeing where are the actual use cases, and those are the areas it's actually going to lift off. And then there's going to be a lot of areas like we talk about campaign end to end. Is that going to be something that really needs to be solved, or is it more the governance pieces of a campaign? Is it more the reporting pieces of a campaign?
So perfect, Ravi. You have set us up again for our next question. So thank you for that. All right, we've talked about kind of the pain points, getting there, what agents are doing. Each of you works with marketers. What are you seeing your marketers do with agents today in terms of workflows? And how many companies are you seeing really lean into this? Maybe Ravi, we'll start with you.
Yeah, so I think marketers want to try new things, which is awesome. It kind of and that's always like understanding like, is this actually helping me or is this not helping me? None of us really know it, right, until we're actually in the application part of it. The other piece is what I think marketers are looking for at the end of the day is how do we solve this kind of feedback loop in our whole ecosystem between data and audiences and the way I'm spending my money, and like how do I make it more real time in nature? And everyone just is like, oh, agents can solve that. I think it's a mix of automation and pieces of AI and pieces of agentic pieces on top of it at the end of the day. But that's what at the end of the day, it's like, how do I make my dollar go further? How do I kind of make things more efficient at the end of the day, and make things just easier to work at the end? What marketers want to do is just want to be more nimble and more agile and not have to go through like layers and layers of decisions and everything. And agents is a nice way on paper to say like agents can solve all that for you.
Ali, what are you seeing your marketers do?
Yeah, so I first want to reassure the room. I was in a room at CES where someone asked who'd heard of AdCP, which is one of the agent protocols. It was a room of 30 brands and senior agency people, and 2 hands went up. So like, I think what I see, so it's not too, like people haven't even really started, but where they're building a really solid foundation is around getting the right data and modeling in place to power their agents, right? So obviously like working with a company like LiveRamp to get all of their data ready in a clean room to be activated by a partner like one of the companies on the stage. That's what's really important. And they're also testing and running AI models today. And what they're doing that is against measurement that actually drives the bottom line for their business. That's a lot to set up so that you can have agents making great decisions rather than mediocre click-through rate-based decisions.
Awesome.
I mean, I largely agree with what you said. I would, but it's not just about setting up agents to do that. It's about setting up, other AI technologies. It doesn't have to be agents. So getting that data aligned. In terms of really a strict use case of actual agents, an LLM going out and taking action. One example, we use this internally, and I've seen other people use this, is for just testing creative tags. We have an agent that every time we get a tag, goes out, verifies various aspects of it. And the interesting thing there, it's hit or miss. It's like sometimes it'll say the tag failed, and then if we run it again, it's like, no, it's fine. So agents are still inconsistent, but despite that inconsistency, they can save time on those small tasks where they're supervised. So that's where we're seeing use.
Awesome. So maybe a follow-up question to that. Those are the use cases you're seeing. What's the customer feedback? How are they, do they think it's working? What do they want to see more of? What do they want to see less of? Aaron.
I think it's too early to say feedback on agentic end-to-end systems, but maybe I'll pivot a little bit and say, we see a lot of feedback in terms of the use of foundation models, driving better ad tech decisions. So we have a product called Context GPT, which, its goal is to allow sort of a prompt-based definition of brand suitability that's very transparent about what it's finding, and you can really have a nuanced definition. And we see incredible feedback on that. I think revenue grew about between 300 and 400% year over year. So I think that's a success story, and also sort of highlights that I don't think we should be blinded by the agentic buzzword. I think LLMs offer way more than just the possibility of agents. They have many new capabilities that didn't exist just a few years ago, like the amount of great marketing intuition is driven by understanding events and culture and products. And previously, machines didn't have access to that. But with LLMs, they're beginning to gain that knowledge. And I think that just sets up so many different opportunities for new products in advertising, which I'm excited about.
LA.
Yeah. So our customers are using our platform with also a chat-based model to basically become data scientists without a mathematics degree, right? So they're running models, they're able to tune them and refine them, and at some point train agents to learn alongside them. And that is like transformative, right? To be a media buyer who can now operate like a data scientist. So that's, I think the feedback there is exciting because it's not AI is going to take my job. It's like, oh, wow, AI is elevating my job.
Yeah. Ravi?
I think similar, right? Marketers are kind of leaning in terms of feedback, right? They wanting to try new things, test new boundaries, because they're also a little bit tired of the old ad tech silos that exist in our ecosystem. And they know with the idea of agents and LLMs and AI, there's an opportunity to kind of connect a lot of these systems and actually have them talk to each other to a certain extent, right? And so we're seeing a lot of that happen, which is like, there's a lot of ad tech companies that are kind of still their own, quote unquote, walled gardens of data and things like that. So we're seeing that a lot. We're seeing, similarly on our platform, right? Clients want to use it. They want to use it in different ways, right? We get a big utilization in their reporting use cases where they're just trying to understand, what's happening across a certain timeline or across certain measures of, advertisers or campaigns or anything like that, where it's being used more and more. But we're super excited about where it's going. I think there's still a lot of work to be done across the ecosystem, and that'll take it to another level. Will it be fully autonomous? To be seen.
All right. Well, maybe a quick question for our audience, a quick poll. How many folks in this room have used an agentic workflow this year? All right, let's get the hands a little bit higher. Maybe a third, 40%? All right. So for the 60 to 70% of you that did not raise your hands, these three companies will be around after this panel. Come up, talk to them. They'll be able to share more about how you can do this. One of the challenges we're making to our customers, every customer should be trying an AI workflow sometime this year. So easy thing to experiment. Jumping of like, all right, we want to rally the industry around this. We need to talk about agentic standards. So this has been a bit of a hot topic in the industry. Ali, to your point, maybe less so with the marketers. Would be curious, as we think about agentic audiences, ad CP, all of these standards coming out, how do we get them to work together? How do we move forward? Ali, maybe can you share how you're thinking about interoperability there?
Mm-hmm. I have a cheeky answer, which is that we can have as many standards as we want, because if the agents are super smart, they're going to be able to talk across standards. But I think, the IAB has painstakingly created standards across our industry. It took forever to get the ball rolling down the hill, but now they are very responsive. They have the agentic real-time framework that they've built, and it's built across the standards that the industry has created for decades now. So I think we should adopt that because it's like on top of standards that already exist for the industry. It'll be the fastest accelerant to really cross-company agentic, which I think is what we're all saying we're bullish on agentic, but I think we're also saying true big agentic cross-company projects haven't started yet. Fastest way is to adopt against the standards we already have. Again, going back to the instructions are what matter so much.
Got it. So adopting, leaning into what the IAB has done, leaning into what has already been done, and then upgrading those.
Yeah.
Ravi.
I agree. I think if you want agents to actually work and be useful and do more than the few agent-assisted stuff that we all work with, right? Even though a lot of those workflows are very human-assisted workflows, you're going to need standards, and you're going to need those standards adopted because you need data interoperability. You need context across the ecosystem. You can't get context on audiences and identity resolution and media supply and all those things without a certain standard around it on what it all means. With that said, right, at the end of the day, you're going to also you're going to have agents that do certain pieces and certain they can be trained to do certain functions. You can't just let them loose, because even in our current ecosystem, if you think about it, there are standards, but does everyone adopt every piece of the standard? No. There are good amount of adoption in terms of across inside the standards, but not everyone follows the rules also.
That's very fair. Aaron?
Maybe I'll try to give like a geeky answer.
Great.
I think AdCP and IAB is sort of slightly more ambitious version of that. I think it's AAMP. I think they have a lot of potential to change how we interact with ad tech services. Like instead of going to some web interface and clicking a bunch of things, you type to an agent and it goes and does that for you, which I think could save time. I think it remains to be seen whether that will be adopted or whether agents change so much in the next year that it sort of becomes irrelevant. TBD on that. On the Agentic real-time framework, ARTF. Yeah, whatever it is. I'm a little more skeptical of that. Like the idea there is you're trying to put your decisioning engine in a container. It's not really an agentic solution. It's really a way of inserting some custom algorithm into the real-time programmatic stack. And on that, I think it's going to be hard to squeeze state-of-the-art decisioning or prediction engines into a container. So I think it remains to be seen how widely that gets adopted and whether it can compete with more technical solutions.
We do it today. Our customers see, like we just got back from Bayer and MMM that was 50% better than
I think it's a step up from segments. I'm like, there's segments, and then I think ARTF is going to be better. But the question is, I think it's limited in some ways, and the question is, how important is that in the long run?
All right. Final question of the panel. So looking over the next year, what are some milestones that you are looking for the industry to hit? What are some signs that we are seeing these agentic campaigns scale, that we are seeing these agentic workflows scale?
I feel like I get to go first too often. Let's see. What am I monitoring? Well, I think one fun metric that maybe people have heard of or maybe not, a new benchmark came out last year called Meter, which looks at this is specific for coding, but how long a task can the agent complete reliably? Like 5 minutes, 10 minutes, an hour. And the trend there is that it's doubling every 7 months. But that means that it won't be until 2028 that can really operate independently for more than a week. And that, I think that tells you, unless that accelerates, I don't think we're going to have agents running campaigns. So I think it's worth looking at that and just seeing where does that go? Does that trend hold up? It's a short history, so we'll see whether it's like a Moore's law or just falls apart. And then in terms of what I'm personally interested in or where I think the near-term opportunity is, I'm excited about the progress in reasoning. So, AI, a lot of ad tech in terms of audience building is based on sort of simple interpretations of behavior. You go to some website, you must be in market. And now we have a tool, reasoning, that should allow us to understand why humans are interested in things in a much deeper way, or what they're up to and why. And I think there's opportunity there for advertising because ultimately it's about understanding people and influencing them.
Ali?
Yeah. So the first thing I always look for as milestones is actual case studies and results. I think we finally moved from talking about what AI will do for you to what AI's done for companies. And I think that, right, if we can get back here in a year or 6 months and have a panel about how, really the results around using Agentic, I don't know if it'll be that fast for a fully baked agentic solution. And then, I'll pause there.
All right. So we have to get back here in 1 year. The challenge is everyone has a case study. RampUp 2027.
Let's do it by can.
All right. We have 3 months.
Yeah. Who wants come see me after?
Ravi.
So milestones, right? I think one of the things is think about, as a marketer, all the pieces that are still manual and human enabled, right? Whether it's a creative function, it's a campaign setup function, it's any of those. I'm not saying agents, I do agree, Aaron, I don't think they're going to do everything end to end. But figure out in what areas can you use an agent to kind of get you 70, 80% of the way there. You're not going to have it just run wild, but it can help you become more efficient. I think that's going to be a big milestone where you're using it to get you 60 to 80% of the way there, and then you can do the last few bits of it, and you find those efficiencies and stuff. And then as you learn what it's good for and it's not, I mean, most people here, I assume, have probably used some version of ChatGPT. You ask it a question, guess what? It's going to agree with you. You're like, this is right? Yes, it's right. So it's the best therapist there is, right? At the end of the day. So yeah, I mean, everything is kind of taken, and it would be a disservice not to at least try it and see where it can get you and where are the wins for you. It's going to be specific to each marketer in their own use cases too.
Awesome.
I had a thought.
Please.
My second thought, which is that the other milestone I'm looking for is, I think a lot of companies right now are like, we have agents and they're very generic and they do the same thing for everyone. I think it would be really important is a tide turning where agents are really learning and executing for like specific different enterprises. Like we think about AI modeling being the most powerful when it's executed for an enterprise versus like kind of, one AI model to rule them all.
So going from generic agents to really niche agents and specialized agents.
Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you all for taking the time to join us. Thank you to our amazing panelists, Aaron, Ali, Ravi. Thanks
for the opportunity.
And thank you all.